and a champion, a champion. This is me, I'm still on it, 'cause you all wanna be loved. Yeah, you all wanna be loved by a champion, a champion.
Hey everyone, so as you can see, the bike has been taken back apart, and that was so we could retrofit some additional parts that I made and have made. I'm going to put my glasses on for this because I want to show you some things. First of all, the battery box that goes down in here now has some polyurethane rubber lining inside the box, and that is to absorb some of the shock while the battery's in there, so it's not vibrating right against the metal. And then I have straps that go over top, and they have also been coated, so they will go in there. Almost this side. And the manufacturer sent me some little foam stick-on appliques, and those will go on the sides of the box to, again, cushion the battery and protect it. Okay, now before you might have seen it, I had the shock mounted in here, and I had it mounted in upside down. So we're going to loosen the battery bracket up, slide the seat out so you can see that. This can go like this, so that the cylinder here is down inside the A-arm. Now the only drawback to that is if you hit a good shot, a good jump or landing, it will slightly rub against the body here, the plastic. I'm going to adjust some tension into the spring. That'll help make this a little more rigid in the back, and I'll absorb more of the shock in the front. And I'm willing to accept some rubbing and maybe a little marring on the plastic here. Again, it's not a really visible spot, so I'm not too worried about it. Okay. The other thing we had an issue with here is this is a jack seat post that will go up about 100 millimeters, but when it's down and the light is mounted, it won't clear in order to be, if the frame is straight. In order to have the light straight, facing backwards, it won't fit on this bracket. It's about 1.5 inches or so too long, too close to this. It needs to be extended down. So what I'm doing here is I'm making a plate. I bought a piece of aluminum, and we're going to drill holes so that it mounts to here, and then there will be more holes down here so that it moves this bracket, the light fixture. It will move it all down completely where I need it to be, and then I can adjust the angle to get the tail lights facing straight back as I want to, but then still have this mount. And I'll show you a close-up image of this. So the holes between the mounting bracket so the holes in the plate mount for the light and the plate are right here, and they are 1.7 inches apart. Okay, and so the plate is 4 inches wide. I took the bracket and matched it up here and made sure that all the foam that is behind the bracket has a flat surface to match to, and then went about 1/8 of an inch below, and that is how this line got marked, and this is where I'm going to cut it off. So this will be behind the license plate. You still won't see it, so I could leave it marked up like this. I can clean it up and leave it silver. I can paint it, it doesn't matter. You're not going to see it, other than maybe a little bit of the reveal behind, but mostly the tail lights will be covering this. And the only place you'd really see it is behind the bracket, where the bracket's actually mounted to, and maybe under here. Again, I'll probably paint this to a black to match the other parts or something. I know this is going in and out of focus here. Hopefully we can get it to line up. There you go. So that is how that will look afterwards. So with the magic of cinematography, we will come back with a completed plate. Magic, now it's cut off. As you can see, now I'm exactly the length I want to have. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill small pilot holes in each one of these holes, and that's to ensure that the holes stay centered. So first we're going to punch it with a center punch, and then we're going to drill with a small drill, and then we're going to work our way up until we get to the larger drills. Now remember, these holes are going to be tapped, so we're going to drill to the size for the tap and then drill and tap those out so that we can then use screws to mount them onto the bracket, because the bracket already had screws going into each one. Now that we're adding a bracket and we're extending it down, we need to be able to put screws through this, and the plate will mount to here, and then we'll put nuts behind it, and then the plate will mount through here into the seat bracket, and we'll put nuts behind there as well. So let's take it back and get to drilling. As you guys can see, I have a nice cloth top on the table. These moving blankets are really nice, but I don't want to mess them up, so I'm just going to use a small piece of spare wood, just a scrap piece or anything like that, so as I'm drilling through, I'm not drilling into my nice new cloth, tearing it up. And all of these holes here, because this is a metric bike, it all has all metric screws, so we stuck with that. These are M6 threads, M6 by 1, and you're going to need a M6 by 1 tap and a 5mm drill. If you don't have a 5mm drill and you just buy the tap, you can use a 3/16 drill and just round out the hole a little bit. Because this is aluminum, it's very forgiving, it'll allow you to do the tap. So as you saw when I tapped these, I used a drill driver to drive the tap. Again, it's a very forgiving material, and I have done this several times over many years. So I'm very familiar with starting slow, taking my time, and getting these holes nice and straight. If you're new to this, I suggest using a tap handle and slowly working your way through. That way you can ensure it's straight and that you don't break the tap, because once you break a tap in this metal, you're starting over, because you're never going to get carbide steel out of aluminum without damaging the aluminum. Okay, so this is all put together here. We're going to go ahead and put our seat clamp back in place in a minute, but we're going to actually mount the plate onto here first. Now I do have the original screws that threw this plate onto here. This is the tail light right here. And since we're adding a plate, we need some extra screws. So I went and got 2 more metric screws. So we're going to start those in the back of this first. By threading these on. Now it's obviously going to be tight because this is a very small bracket, so that's why I took it off of the bike, and we'll thread it on first here. And the reason for that is that we want to be able to use smaller screws, and then I'll just put a nut on the back as a retainer to ensure that this screw stays in place. Now you can always use blue Loctite, and I do recommend that in a part that's not a moving part. Blue Loctite is nice because it's removable, and it doesn't have a really fast setup time, so you're able to loosen the screws and take them out should you have a mistake or something. Luckily for me, measuring precisely makes this bracket fit perfectly. So now, just finish threading these bolts in here. We just want it snug so we can verify that everything is fitting as we want it to. We don't have to shorten it up or anything. We don't have any clearance issues, and it's also why we're not painting anything at this point. Okay, so bracket on here. We'll go ahead and put the seat in. I don't like to clamps down without the post in place. The seat is in its lowest position. And we will verify that by pulling this up and driving it down. Okay. Now, this is going to mount down here. And then as you see, when the bike is level, tail light is facing backwards, completely straight, plenty of clearance. Actually probably could have gone a little shorter, but I do like where it's sitting now, so that's where we're going to leave it. I don't see any clearance issues. If anything, there's plenty of room for the tire here, and there will actually be a fender clamping on here that will go over top of the tire as well to stop any mud splashing up, and that will have plenty of clearance. So we're going to use the original screws that came with it and put those in through here. And we'll use the lock washer on them just to help lock them in place. And again, I'm not going to tighten this down completely, I'm just going to fit it. And then most likely leave it together as an assembly, so later on when I take things apart, I know what all parts go with what, and I don't lose any screws. Alright, for the sake of time, we will use the drill driver. Alright. This is nice and firm. There'll be a little more tightening once I'm done. This will sit nice and secure. And you see, everything looks great. That's exactly where I want it. Should I have to put a plate on it, I don't think it'll be much longer than that. We do have very small plates here in the US, so that will work. If it didn't, I would probably rotate this down so that the tail light was down further, and then have the plate coming up behind the seat. For those European plates where they're twice as long, if there were clearance issues. Right now it doesn't look like it, based on the tire being right about there. See, actually be right about there. Plenty of room, and that's with it really down far. Obviously it's going to sit a lot higher than that. So we've got that done. One of the other things I do want to show you, and I'll give you some close-up images of it, is the disc mount here and this power wire. This is the wire to the motor, so they are really close together. And when this was shipped, it had a spacer bracket behind the disc. Now that spacer bracket would have had to be in place for the caliper on the back here to line up. So what I did was I removed this, but I also measured how thick it was and got a piece of aluminum. It was really, really close, within thousandths of an inch, a few thousandths, not very thick, much thicker, and removed this so that this plate could go back, the disc could go back, which also means the nuts that mount it go back. And the reason for that is that there is very little clearance between here, between this wire and the disc brake, and where this goes into the frame. So in order to get that extra clearance and make me feel a little safer and secure about this wire not rubbing on anything, I was able to move the brake in and just move the disc in, the caliper in a little bit. And what I did was, I took the cut-off piece of aluminum, set that down there, and I made a small bracket right here, and I'll show you some close-ups of that. So that you can see that there is a small spacer here, and what that do is it brings in the caliper just enough to then ride over the disc properly, and it matches up to this thickness here on this one. So, and all I did was drill 2 holes. I didn't cut it and modify it completely to match it. As you probably see now, you can barely see it. It's not real noticeable. I can paint black as well, or I can leave it silver, or I can polish it. paint it white. Right now, it depends on if I do paint the bike or do anything different to it. That will then change and match. But right now, it's also loosely fit. Again, we're doing some more refitting, and that was what the initial assembly was for, was to fit everything, see how everything went together.
To see the sun, but